Drive by Daniel Pink is the book that revolutionized our understanding of human motivation by proving that everything we thought we knew about what drives people to perform their best is not just wrong, but dangerously counterproductive in today's knowledge economy. Daniel Pink begins his groundbreaking work by establishing that we are living through a profound mismatch between what science knows about motivation and what business practices actually implement. For most of the 20th century, we operated under an assumption that human beings were essentially sophisticated rats navigating a maze, responding predictably to rewards and punishments. This mechanistic view of motivation, which Pink labels as Motivation 2.0, worked reasonably well during the Industrial Age when most work was routine, straightforward, and algorithmic. However, as our economy has shifted toward creative, conceptual, and complex work, this outdated motivational operating system has become not just ineffective, but actively harmful to performance, creativity, and satisfaction. The author presents compelling evidence from multiple sources to demonstrate this fundamental disconnect. At MIT, researchers gave participants puzzles that required creativity and found that those offered higher financial incentives actually performed worse than those offered modest rewards. This was not an isolated finding. The London School of Economics analyzed 51 studies of pay-for-performance plans and concluded that financial incentives can result in negative impacts on overall performance. Federal Reserve Bank economists studying these results noted that higher incentives led to worse performance across a wide range of tasks. These findings were not anomalies, but part of a consistent pattern that challenges our most basic assumptions about what motivates people. Pink explains that this counterintuitive result occurs because external rewards have four destructive effects on intrinsic motivation. First, they extinguish intrinsic motivation by shifting people's focus from the inherent satisfaction of the work to the external reward. Second, they diminish performance by narrowing focus and reducing creativity. Third, they crush creativity by encouraging people to take the safe, conventional path rather than exploring innovative solutions. Fourth, they crowd out good behavior by making people focus on the reward rather than the purpose of the activity itself. When we pay people to do things they might naturally find interesting, we inadvertently transform play into work and intrinsic motivation into compliance. The historical context Pink provides shows that our current motivational approaches evolved from legitimate needs, but have outlived their usefulness. Motivation 1.0 was our biological drive for survival, focused on basic needs like food, shelter, and safety. This worked perfectly for our ancestors, but proved insufficient as societies became more complex. Motivation 2.0 emerged during the Industrial Revolution, built on the assumption that humans are driven primarily by external rewards and punishments. This characteristic approach was well suited to the routine, rule-based work that dominated the 20th century economy. Assembly line workers, data processors, and other industrial-age employees could indeed be motivated effectively through bonuses, commissions, and the threat of punishment. However, Pink argues that we have entered the age of Motivation 3.0, which recognizes that for increasingly complex, creative work, intrinsic motivation far outperforms external incentives. This new motivational operating system is built on the understanding that humans have three innate psychological needs: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. When these needs are satisfied, people perform at higher levels, experience greater satisfaction, and demonstrate more creativity and innovation. Point 1. Autonomy represents the desire to direct our own lives and work. And Pink breaks this down into four essential areas where people need self-direction. Task autonomy means having some choice in what work you do. Companies like 3 Meters have long understood this principle, allowing technical employees to spend 15% of their time on projects of their own choosing, which has led to innovations like Post-it notes. Time autonomy involves having flexibility in when work gets done. Best Buy implemented a results-only work environment where employees had complete control over when and where they worked. as long as they achieved their objectives. This led to increased productivity, higher job satisfaction, and lower turnover rates. Technique autonomy means having some say in how work gets accomplished, rather than micromanaging every process. Effective organizations provide clear goals and allow people to determine their own methods for achieving them. Team autonomy involves having input into who you work with, recognizing that collaboration and chemistry significantly impact performance and satisfaction. Point 2. The concept of autonomy directly contradicts traditional management thinking that assumes people need to be controlled, monitored, and directed. Pink presents research from the University of Rochester showing that people who are autonomy-oriented at work experience higher levels of job satisfaction, better performance evaluations, and greater psychological well-being compared to those who are control-oriented. The author explains that autonomy is not the same as independence. While independence means relying entirely on yourself, autonomy means acting with choice, volition, and self-direction. You can be autonomous while working collaboratively with others, as long as you have chosen to engage in that collaboration. Point 3. Pink illustrates how companies that embrace autonomy often see remarkable results. Atlassian, an Australian software company, instituted quarterly ship-it days, where employees could work on any project they wanted for 24 hours, as long as they delivered something to the company by the end. These sessions consistently produced innovative solutions, new product features, and process improvements that had eluded the regular development process. Google's famous 20% time policy, which allowed engineers to spend 1 day per week on projects that interested them, led to Gmail, Google News, and AdSense. These examples demonstrate that when people have autonomy over their work, they do not become lazy or unfocused. Instead, they often become more productive and innovative than when they are closely managed and directed. Point 4. The second element of Motivation 3.0 is mastery, which Pink defines as the desire to get better and better at something that matters. Unlike external rewards that can diminish over time, the pursuit of mastery is inherently satisfying and self-reinforcing. People will spend countless hours practicing musical instruments, perfecting athletic skills, or learning new technologies not because they expect external rewards, but because the process of improvement itself is rewarding. Pink explains that mastery has 3 fundamental characteristics that distinguish it from mere competence or skill acquisition. Point 5. Mastery is first and foremost a mindset that views human capacity as infinitely improvable rather than fixed. People with a mastery mindset believe that their abilities can be developed through dedication, hard work, and learning from failure. This contrasts sharply with a fixed mindset that sees talent and intelligence as static traits. Research by Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck has shown that people with growth mindsets consistently outperform those with fixed mindsets because they embrace challenges, persist in the face of obstacles, and see effort as the path to mastery rather than a sign of inadequacy. Organizations that foster mastery mindsets see employees who are more willing to take on difficult assignments, more resilient in the face of setbacks, and more likely to develop innovative solutions to complex problems. Point 6. The second characteristic of mastery is that it requires pain, effort, and deliberate practice. Pink draws on the research of psychologist Anders Ericsson, who studied expert performers across many fields and found that achieving mastery requires approximately 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. This is not simply repetition or casual engagement with an activity, but focused, challenging practice that pushes people beyond their comfort zones. Mastery-oriented people understand that expertise develops through sustained effort over time, and they are willing to endure the discomfort and frustration that comes with pushing their limits. This understanding helps explain why people will voluntarily engage in difficult, challenging work when they see it as contributing to their development and expertise. Point 7. The third characteristic of mastery is that it is asymptotic, meaning you can approach it but never fully attain it. This quality makes mastery simultaneously frustrating and alluring. No matter how skilled someone becomes, There are always new levels of expertise to pursue, new challenges to overcome, and new skills to develop. This endless nature of mastery explains why people can remain engaged in activities for decades without losing interest. Professional athletes continue training intensively even after achieving tremendous success because they understand that mastery is an ongoing journey rather than a destination. This asymptotic quality of mastery means that the pursuit itself becomes the reward, creating sustainable motivation that does not depend on external recognition or compensation. Point 8. Pink explains that mastery is closely connected to the psychological concept of flow, developed by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Flow occurs when the challenge of a task is perfectly matched to a person's skill level, creating a state of complete absorption and optimal performance. When people experience flow, they lose track of time, become completely focused on the task at hand, and often achieve their best work. Organizations that understand mastery create conditions that promote flow. By providing employees with appropriately challenging work that matches their developing skills and by removing distractions and obstacles that interfere with deep focus. Point 9. The third element of Motivation 3.0 is purpose, which Pink describes as the yearning to do what we do in the service of something larger than ourselves. Purpose provides context and meaning for our work, transforming individual tasks into contributions to a broader mission. Research has consistently shown that people who understand how their work contributes to a larger purpose demonstrate higher levels of engagement, satisfaction, and performance. Purpose does not require working for a charitable organization or solving world problems, though it can certainly include those activities. A custodian who sees their work as creating healthy, safe environments for children has found purpose in their role. A software developer who understands how their code helps people communicate and connect has identified the larger meaning in their technical work. Point 10. Pink distinguishes between profit motive and purpose motive, arguing that while profit maximization has been the primary driver of business for several decades, purpose-driven organizations consistently outperform their profit-focused competitors over the long term. Companies that articulate clear purposes beyond making money attract better employees, inspire higher levels of commitment, and create stronger customer loyalty. The author presents examples of organizations that have successfully integrated purpose into their business models, such as Patagonia's commitment to environmental sustainability, which attracts both employees and customers who share those values, and Tom's Shoes 141 giving model, which creates a direct connection between customer purchases and social impact. Point 11. The transition to purpose-driven work often requires what Pink calls purpose maximization rather than profit maximization. This does not mean ignoring financial realities or business sustainability, but rather understanding that long-term profitability often flows from a clear sense of purpose. Organizations that help employees connect their daily work to larger organizational purposes see increased engagement, lower turnover, and higher levels of innovation. This connection can be fostered through regular communication about organizational impact, opportunities for employees to see the results of their work, and involving staff in discussions about company, mission, and values. Point 12. Pink addresses the practical implications of implementing Motivation 3.0 in existing organizations, acknowledging that this transition requires fundamental changes in management practices, performance evaluation systems, and organizational structures. Traditional command and control management approaches must give way to more collaborative, coaching-oriented leadership styles that support autonomy while maintaining accountability. Performance evaluation systems need to incorporate measures of growth, learning, and contribution to organizational purpose rather than focusing exclusively on short-term results and compliance metrics. Point 13. The author presents evidence that Motivation 3.0 is not just a theoretical concept, but a practical approach that delivers measurable results. Studies of companies implementing autonomous work environments show increased productivity, higher employee satisfaction, and improved customer service. Research on mastery-oriented learning environments demonstrates accelerated skill development and greater innovation. Organizations that clearly articulate purpose and help employees connect to that purpose experience lower turnover, higher engagement, and stronger financial performance over time. Point 14. Pink concludes by emphasizing that the shift to Motivation 3.0 is not optional for organizations that want to thrive in the modern economy. As routine work becomes increasingly automated and global competition intensifies, the ability to tap into human creativity, innovation, and commitment becomes essential for success. Organizations that continue to rely on outdated carrot-on-stick approaches will find themselves at a severe disadvantage compared to those that understand and implement the principles of intrinsic motivation. The science is clear, the evidence is compelling, and the stakes are high. The question is not whether organizations should embrace Motivation 3.0, but how quickly they can make the transition before their competitors gain an insurmountable advantage. Knowledge is only powerful when applied. Take one idea from today's book and put it into action. If you want more summaries on personal finance, leadership, and self-development, subscribe and join me on this journey of growth.